right? So Nelly and Rico, you got questions for Tobias? They're pointing at each other. I'll call it back to you if you don't hear her. Are you talking about voters? Okay. So she says that one of the driving forces right now is kind of this perception of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, where it's very easy to drive voter behavior or voter feelings based on fear, and you kind of address that yourself. What is tell me if I get the question right. What is some of the ownership? How can we maybe take some self-responsibility? What are things that we as voters can maybe do to placate or create a more reasonable response to the anxieties? Because there's a lot of there's a lot of people are kind of apprehensive. 2024 was okay, but I'm kind of anxious about 2025. I don't know what's around the corner. What would you say to your own constituency if they asked you about this topic?
That's a really interesting question, because my concern is that it is the very voters themselves that need to change, that can affect change. My view is that we're not spending enough on defense, on security. There's a big debate at the moment as to whether we're actually in a gray zone war with Russia. And I've just written another article today, in fact, that makes that very case, because we're constantly bombarded. But because we can't really see it, then we're sort of in denial. And if we're in denial, we don't really spend any money on it. And if the British people aren't feeling it, they don't then demand that our parliamentarians spend money on it. And why would you spend money on something that you can't really see when you really want money spent on your hospitals, your schools, and your policing and elsewhere? The trouble with that, you say 2024 wasn't so bad. What's 5 years from now going to be like? Is it going to be more dangerous or less? And if there's half a chance it can be more dangerous, we need to prepare for that. Because a lot of the time here, people are saying it's 1937. That's what they're saying.
Oh, I think if you go 100 years back, you're pretty close to where we were 100 years ago.
Yeah. In which case, what are we doing to prepare ourselves for that? And you either need an acute event, but like a Sputnik moment, or something that happens that wakes everybody up, or the British people, American people turn around and say, this is now important for me. I'm happy for taxes to go up to make sure that our resilience is better, particularly in this asymmetric warfare zone, which is an all-of-society approach. Because every aspect, if somebody gets into your infrastructure, turns the lights out, and then you go dark for 48 hours, the chaos that will cause, the economic harm, the political discord, the societal interruption is huge, and we're just not ready for that.
I think what you're alluding to is one of the key functions. I think being charismatic is just part of creating the appeal so that people listen to you. Being eloquent and being able to communicate so that you can communicate things concisely. But I think what you're referring to is one of the master skills of true leadership is when everybody's dealing with the status quo, to have the capability of having a realpolitik kind of perspective of where we are and what the different scenarios of the future might be, and taking action now to have a preemptive position towards that, so that just like you said, it's not going to be worse in 4 or 5 years. And I think that's a skill set that's really lacking in the industry, and I'm afraid also in politics to a certain extent.